Hi, my name is Cameron Miller, and this is for the 10th week after Pentecost. And here is a self-composed American psalm for the 21st century, taken from Psalm 78 that we read this week. He sent the east wind from heaven and led the south wind with his power. He rained vaccines on them like dust. The masks were as many as the sand of the sea. He made the vaccines fall inside the camp all around the houses, so the people received shots as God gave them what they wanted. And then this commentary, adapted from John's Gospel that we heard also, or that we read. Jesus said, "The vaccines are the way to life. The person who is vaccinated and practices CDC advice need fear no more, ever. I have told you this explicitly because even though you have seen unvaccinated and unmasked neighbors get sick and die, you don't really believe it. I came down from heaven not to follow my own agenda, but to spread the word. Mask up when necessary. Get vaccinated." Okay, so my little editorial effort is goofy, but I was struck by the psalm and the gospel, the psalm being a psalm that is actually a reflection on the story in Exodus. Those two stories about people doing or resisting the very things that might protect or save them, well, they parallel how unvaccinated people resist the clear and obvious benefits of being vaccinated, even when it does not compromise their health. This present catastrophe of ours is so biblically familiar. God called the people of Israel stiff-necked, which is a great description of human beings when we put our foot down with resistance, no matter what the evidence and no matter what the consequences. Now, I made that creative parallel just to say that it has been going on for a very, very long time. We shake our heads today at what people are denying and saying no to, and yet it has been going on since the beginning. I mean, Noah didn't get 75% positive response either. When it's climate change, whether it's climate change or the political situation or vaccines, stubborn resistance is par for the course when it comes to human beings. And what's more, every single one of us here and hearing me now has been a stiff-necked human more than once in our lives. Can I get an amen to that? I mean, I think most of us know, or most of you know, at least if you've known me in person as opposed to virtually, that I've been contending with some back issues for quite a few months now. Now, I don't know what the solution will be to the back issues I'm suffering, but I know what the cause was. Years and years of a stiff-necked Cam doing things I should not have been doing just because I refused to accept that I wasn't big enough and strong enough to do them by myself. When anyone warned me not to, my neck stiffened and I went on doing what I was doing just to show that I could. Evidence and science be damned. That's what we do. Jesus may be the bread of life, but we'll bake our own, thank you very much. We will do what we want, when we want, and how we want, because we are a stiff-necked species. It's part of our disease. If you didn't know, we all have a congenital disease, then I'm afraid that's just one more denial to add to your bar tab. Now, traditional religious folks like to call this congenital disease sin. People like Paul and Augustine developed awkward mythologies to describe why we do what we know we should not do, even when it's against our best interest. I think the word sin has too much religious baggage to it to be very useful, but that does not mean that I am in denial about our universally shared congenital disease. I don't know what to call it. Stupidity might work, but that has its own baggage. All I know is that the Bible is masterful at telling stories about how stiff-necked we have always been, whether kings and queens, priests and prophets, or ordinary folks like us. Over and over and over again, we have just refused to see things as they are because we didn't like the evidence. Over and over and over and over again, we have just refused to accept or believe warnings about the consequences of our choices. Over and over and over and over again, we have just refused to do what we could do in order to change or modify or even save ourselves from the bad things likely to happen because of our bad choices. We've done this repeatedly throughout history, and we have each done this repeatedly in our own lives. Today, we witness entire segments of our society doing it right now. We are a stiff-necked species. Instead of compensating for our disease by ensuring that feedback from the prophets in each generation can and will be heard, we marginalize them, or worse. Whether it's in science, politics, religion, banking, industry, the military, media, schools, or the economy, we marginalize people who speak up and who offer feedback and let us know that the rudder needs a hard turn. Most of us do not have the power to make sure that our political leaders and our cultural influencers have people around them who offer feedback from different perspectives, but we can do that for ourselves, and if need be, we can do that en masse to those people in power. You and I can make sure, though, that we have people in our lives who will offer feedback from a perspective that is not naturally our own. Whether it's about race, gender or transgender, sexuality, ethnicity, immigration, religion, politics, or economics, we can work to build relationships with people who will share a different perspective than the ones that we keep in the comfort of our own nice little nest. And then, of course, there's the challenge of listening to them, taking in what they see and trying to see it from their perspective. When we do that, chances are we'll be changed. Chances are something that we have assumed or wanted to believe will be changed by that kind of feedback. We may not change our minds about the particular issue, but maybe we will grow in compassion or in understanding, and that will change our behavior. Compassion and understanding always changes behavior. Here's a little silly example. I've been taking part in a clergy dialogue with clergy from all over the country, gathered in small groups via Zoom, discussing a variety of topics, particularly about the pandemic and how it has changed our perspectives in ministries and personal spirituality. One of the questions we were asked recently, to ponder and then talk about, was, how has your experience and understanding of God been sustained or reinforced? How has your experience and understanding of God been sustained or reinforced? I objected, and I called it an unfortunate question, and I was proud of myself for using a refined phrase like that. But why would I want my understanding of God to be sustained and not challenged, or to be reinforced and not changed? It was framed as if spirituality and religion are about preservation, which is crazy. So I offered the organizers that feedback. The challenge for me will be if they respond, and whether I will listen or not, and whether I will hear the perspective from which they see it, and then learn something from them. You see, that's a feedback loop, and it can go on and on and on as long as the participants want to listen to each other. But when we're stiff-necked, we simply do not want to listen, and we push away whatever else anyone has to say. And that is a black hole and a dead end for relationships. So, what I want to add to this is another element of prophecy and of being prophetic, which we've been talking about for several weeks now. It's a small, ordinary, humble kind of thing that we do every day, but that we do not label as religious or spiritual. But you see, offering feedback and receiving feedback, putting ourselves in a place to make certain that we are exposed to feedback, that's all part of being prophetic. It's an element of spiritual practice. And conversely, isolating ourselves and walling ourselves in so that we only hear what we want to hear is the opposite of spiritual, whatever we call it. It's stiff-necked, and it's a disaster for us and for those we live with. Often, and maybe this is the punchline, often spirituality and good spiritual practice is very ordinary and relatively simple. And in this case, as ordinary as giving and receiving feedback.